First, we've got to kick it off with today's Capitol Hill hearings, where FBI agent Peter Strzok, well, he's been testifying all day. The House Oversight and Judiciary Committee's grilling Strzok on the anti-Trump text messages he sent to an FBI colleague during the 2016 election. This, as Republicans clashed with Democrats repeatedly, and the entire circus leading us to really wonder, can these things ever get anything resolved? Now, of course, Strzok, he refused to answer any of these questions, and he maintained, in fact, that there was no bias at the FBI. Watch.
I can assure you, Mr. Chairman, at no time in any of these texts did those personal beliefs ever enter into the realm of any action I took. They would not tolerate any improper behavior in me any more than I would tolerate it in them. That is who we are as the FBI. And the suggestion that I, in some dark chamber somewhere in the FBI, would somehow cast aside all of these procedures, all of these safeguards, and somehow be able to do this is astounding to me. It simply couldn't happen. And the proposition that that is going on, that it might occur anywhere in the FBI, deeply corrodes what the FBI is in American society, the effectiveness of their mission, and it is deeply destructive.
Well, he had a few months to practice that speech, didn't he? Well, here now to discuss Hugo Gurdon, Washington Examiner editorial director, and Beverly Hallberg, she's District Media Group president, along with Jenna Ellis, a constitutional law attorney who also works for the Dobson Family Institute. Beverly, I've got to ask you, you had a lot of great tweets today. Your color commentary was spot on as usual. But I got to tell you something. These things have never really, in my mind, I don't remember or know if any of them have ever resolved the underlying issue. But this seemed to be the worst of them all. This was a circus right out of the gate. There was obstruction. There was very personal. There was a lot of lying. There was a lot of deflecting. What do you make of it all?
Yeah, who needs Jerry Springer when you have daytime TV like this? It was definitely entertaining from the Republicans, also from the Democrats who wanted to interrupt a Republican anytime it seemed like they were getting Peter Strzok to say something, and Peter Strzok himself was pretty animated throughout this. I actually, when I watched this, wondered if it would be better if we didn't televise these. Maybe we'd get better information, more information if it wasn't televised, but I was really struck by Strzok's delivery in general. There was a lot of looking up when he was answering. He seemed like he was very uncomfortable, even when he was, his body language in general, just shifting in his chair quite a bit. It was uncomfortable to watch, but definitely entertaining.
You know, Hugo, though, there were some serious moments. Trey Gowdy went at him pretty hard, particularly with some of these emails that suggested that he would do something to upend the election or the election results. What do you think tomorrow's headlines are going to be on this?
The headlines are certainly going to be about the mayhem and the circus of the thing. I mean, I agree with you, Charles, that the Republicans did go at him hard. The thing that really astonished me, and you mentioned the tone that Strzok used, it was an astonishingly pompous and arrogant performance by him, a pompous opening speech, and then an arrogant way he dealt with the committee. You know, even if he genuinely believes that he's all innocent and that his texts completely mislead people into believing that he was biased and he would work against the president, as a police guy, as an investigator, if he came across these texts in a suspect, he would look into them. He didn't even treat the committee as though it were legitimately looking into this thing. He was talking about it being astonishing that anyone would think that there was anything going wrong. It's not astonishing when you've got an FBI guy leading an investigation and he's saying, we'll stop one candidate, Donald Trump, from becoming president.
You know, Jenna, also he wrapped himself in the veneer of the FBI on several occasions. I think questions that were aimed specifically at him and his actions, the answers always included the FBI and the integrity of the FBI. But I want to ask you from a legal perspective, was anything learned there? Is there anything that we can follow up on here, particularly with the Hillary Clinton emails, some of the decision making, the change in the language of the Comey statement? There were a lot of things there that from a legal perspective, it seems like there should be some follow-up.
There absolutely should be follow-up, and I agree with Hugo's characterization that it was very arrogant and pompous, and really it wasn't substantive. I mean, he gave a lot of answers, Strzok did, that just said, I'm sorry, I can't answer that at this time, and he referred to his legal counsel quite often. And we have to remember, from kind of a 30,000-foot perspective, this is about the separation of powers, and the FBI and the Department of Justice are all within the executive branch, so they report to the president. And so the Congressional Oversight Committee is a legitimate function to serve as a separate investigation when you have something as damaging as the Inspector General's report. And so when you have someone like Strzok who's just grandstanding and then he's saying, I'm sorry, I can't answer questions, then that really impedes the ability of Congress, which is the only branch at that high of a level in the federal government that really can provide meaningful oversight.
You know, Beverly, just moments ago, Chad Pergram, who covers the Congress for Fox News, said he just spoke with a senior House GOP leader who said that this whole thing was an absolute disaster for both sides. I think it was. I think it was a disaster in so many different ways. And still I'm struck, though, by how unprepared or how prepared most of these lawmakers were not to get to answers, but, for instance, with the Democrats, to just block. There was a representative from New Jersey. She was so far off on the pronunciation of Strzok's name, and I'm not the best, but I mean, it was so embarrassing, and yet her main role there was to block, and then give him a platform to block some more.
I remember hearing that and at one point stopped to say, wait, what? How did she just pronounce the individual's name? What did she say? So no, I was surprised by that as well. And what you found is that Democrats, when they did want to interrupt, it was usually when a Republican was getting somewhere, finally getting past the routine comment of the FBI won't let me speak about it. They would jump in and they would make it about Trump himself. This is not about Trump. This is about bias and whether or not that impeded on any investigation. And I think when we take a look at the FBI, whether you like Trump, whether you don't like Trump, whether you're Republican or Democrat, this really is damaging to the FBI, and that's what I was thinking as we're watching this. Like, the FBI is an organization we tend to look at as being above all of this, and he did nothing to help that.
Here you go.
Yeah, there was a real irony, Charles. You know, there was this talk about the investigation being biased. The Democrats actually applauded when Strzok went after President Trump and called his behavior disgusting. You know, if this is, they kind of almost endorsed the idea in that way, that this is more of a partisan circus or a partisan investigation. If they had hung back, if they had just let him say his piece without the applause, then they would have actually lent their own side some credence. But, you know, the way that they behaved made it look like grandstanding and more partisanship.
Jenna, the hearing obviously on our screen continues, so we're not sure what the ultimate conclusion will be, but thinking about this and of course how damning those emails exchanges were, the role that Peter Strzok played in the FBI investigation, not only of President Trump but Hillary Clinton's emails, even saying that, hey, they knew that Russia was involved in trying to meddle in our election and didn't even alert the Trump campaign. It just feels, again, like there should be some legal damage out there somewhere along the line.
There should be, and you know, that's really what the American people want, is that there is legitimacy in our proceedings, that people are held accountable regardless of what their level is, regardless of whether their last name is Trump or Clinton. We want to make sure that people are held accountable to the law and for their actions. And the Inspector General's report was very clear that there was bias. And so to Beverly's point, that this really was just almost a circus proceeding, and that you'd have Republicans and Democrats that were interrupting each other, and the Democrats, of course, when Republicans are making a point. I mean, this is kind of a quasi-judicial proceeding in the sense that there should be legal follow-up. It is on the record, but the rules of evidence in a traditional judicial forum don't apply here, and so we don't see as meaningful of a proceeding as we would in front of a judge, and I think that's problematic, and ultimately it might be better in a closed proceeding, but let's hope that, again, the Department of Justice will actually follow up rather than just seeing the FBI as a colleague under the executive branch. Yeah, that's why Congress really needs to do their job.
I think whoever the senior House GOP leader is, absolutely right. It was an unmitigated disaster. Hey, thank you all very much.